Morning.
Morning. How are you, Rebecca?
Could be better, but I'm fine.
That's good.
We had a bit of I messaged Tennie and on Facebook when we had a bit of a break-in. The criminals came and stole some stuff. So other than that, all's good.
Good.
And your side?
Good. Good Easter, all that good stuff. I'm behind on several things, but my goal is to get caught up today.
Sounds like a similar goal to me.
Yeah.
in other areas.
Yeah, I've been pulled out of the office unexpectedly the last couple of days, but with the grace of God, that won't happen today.
Yeah, I'm busy doing a TEFL course and I've fallen a little bit behind. I need to catch up. So I've got my desk here that I'm gonna listen and work at the same time. If that's possible.
I understand. I think a lot of us do the same thing.
Can always re-listen on Facebook at a later stage if I need to.
Yes, ma'am. Go, girlfriend. I'm proud for you. Love him.
Hey, Cam.
Yes, ma'am.
Last night, Bonnie was the speaker,
Yes, ma'am.
and she mentioned a group that she belongs to, something about accountability and food and things, you know, it's just a little group that they formed. And I don't have any contact information for her. And I was just wondering if there was some way that if she would be able to talk a little bit about it, or if you could find out about it and let us know.
When she jumps on, I'll
Okay.
send a chat to her and find out.
Okay.
I know it wouldn't take away from Tennie's time.
Oh, no, no, no. I don't want to do that. But it's just some way, because I can't reach her. I don't know how to reach her.
Yeah.
So.
I always ask permission.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, if there's some way we can find out what she was talking about, you know?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, guys. How's everyone doing?
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Diane.
Hi, how are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm out here in the middle of nature and still get Wi-Fi. Can't beat it.
No, you can't. Absolutely.
Well, Cora, you look all refreshed and relaxed.
I feel it. Thank you, Cam. I didn't want to come
see it.
home. I didn't want to come home, Cam. It was so, that beach does wonders. It's rejuvenating for the soul.
Yes.
Where did you go?
I was in Jupiter, Florida,
Ah,
right on the ocean. It was beautiful, very relaxing.
lovely.
Nice.
Lovely.
I like the beaches in Florida. They're really nice.
Really pretty. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Diane, we need to go back to Panama City Beach.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi,
Good
Ted.
morning.
Morning, Tennie. Morning, Misty.
Morning, Tennie. Morning,
Hi,
Misty.
Misty.
How's
Morning,
everyone? Good morning. Good morning. There's Bill and Sherry and Angela, and there's Sarah and Bonnie and Kathy and Diane and Kara and Rebecca and Leah and Trey and Bonnie, and I mean, we just got a bunch. Chastity, Ronnie.
Yeah, Tennie, I'm able to pick you up out here camping.
Oh, you're camping?
Yeah, and we have Wi-Fi.
Where are you camping? At it?
Lake Livingston State Park, close to Houston.
Oh, this is Sherry.
Yes, it is, Sherry. I'm sorry. Yes.
Great. Well, are you having fun?
Oh, yeah, it's relaxing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Doing a lot of reading.
Everybody.
We went out to the Kruger Park, which is a big national park in South Africa in December, and we spent a few days out of reception where you really could not get reception. It was the best time ever.
I bet it's pretty there. And there's Jennifer. We haven't seen her for a while. Good morning. And there's Miss Bonnie, Bill, all of you. Good to see And there's Miss Cam. How are you, Cam?
I'm good. We got people coming in.
You look so this morning.
Good, good.
Danny, you look very pretty this morning.
Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I've got on a sundress, but I can't wear, I've got old arms, so I couldn't wear the sundress without a sweater. So, because that's what happens when you get old arms. That's all I have for old arms. That's all that's old about me is the arms. I'm joking, but anyway, thank you.
Misty,
very much.
whose wedding were you at?
Oh, I went to Misty's nephew's wedding.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very nice. Out in this huge venue, it's a big white barn, all done and farm style. It's all white. It's very pretty venue out in the
Looked
country.
lovely.
And I got to go with my grandson. He came in for the weekend, and we just had a good time.
That's great.
How's he doing?
He is doing great. He'll be back before, I think, 4 weeks, then he'll be home. Okay, so there's Chris. Chris from, good morning. Good to see you. And there's Val from Canada. Others are popping up. Ashley. Oh, is that? Yeah, good morning, Ashley. And then there is the Shades of Hope clients. And well, we're just getting all sorts of folks. Well,
You ready to start?
I'm ready when y'all are.
Yep, I've got 10 o'clock. So
10
you're
o'clock
on, girlfriend.
All righty. Well, good morning to Wednesday morning Tennie Talks. And we're going to be talking today about breaking free from being stuck in life. And every time I talk, it seems like I talk about last year, talk about the past, the 20, and we're still in a lot of the pandemic, but, we've all kind of gotten stuck, maybe y'all haven't, but anyway, it's, we've been stuck at home. We've been stuck in our businesses. We've been stuck in several ways, but sometimes we just get stuck emotionally in our life, and it's like we can't go forward. And it can be, difficult to get out of that stuckness. And the longer you're in it, the deeper hole that we dig for ourselves sometimes. And, it's like being in quicksand. And, the secret of getting out of quicksand is don't panic, stop panicking. And then what I read is to lay down on your back and use your legs to dig yourself out of the quicksand. So I just thought that was interesting, because the more we panic about anything, the deeper we go, because we get up in our heads, most of us do, particularly for addicts. We get up in our heads and we make up all sorts of stuff, and so I just thought we'd go over a few things. It's that panicky stuff is a big one. It is really big. But if we do get stuck in our life, we're really in good company. Some of the most famous people that we've have known have gotten stuck in their life. Like Albert Einstein, he got stuck in his life. And my goodness, I mean, look what he did for us, And then Walt Disney, he thought his career was over. He got stuck. But, he pulled himself out of it. And, we all have those wonderful parts to go to, the movies to watch, and all the things that he's done for mankind, not just on the commercial side, but for, who Walt Disney was, So we're in good company if we do have periods of time of getting stuck. And I used to have a sponsor years and years ago, and I'd call her, and I'd be making good progress, and then all of a sudden I'd hit a stopping place and I would get stuck. And I would feel like I wasn't getting anywhere, kind of like that duck in water, on the surface. I looked pretty good, but my feet would just be, paddling so fast. And what she would call it, she'd say, well, Tennie, you're just back in the ditch. And she said, the ditch is not a bad place to be in. And she said, you stay in that ditch till you can learn why you're in the ditch and learn from being in that space right now. And she said, when you get out of that ditch, you're going to come out on a deeper level of sobriety and serenity than you've ever had. God's going to bring you out of that, and you're going to be farther along than you've ever been. And she helped me see that recovery wasn't just a straight line going up. I just wanted to go up, till my head was in the stars. But she says, it's highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. But the ditch, I got to where I didn't get so scared anymore of like having some down times and being in the ditch, because I'd call Pat and she'd say, okay, that's your classroom. Let's see what you're going to learn through this. And she'd always say, now you remember, you write this down, you write about it and write what's coming up about being in the ditch. Because when you come out of it, you're going to be at a different place than you've ever been. And that has been very true for me, because most of us don't learn a lot when things are just really good. When life is just wonderful and smooth sailing, we might pause long enough to say, thank you, God, thank you for all this good stuff. But the lessons, I believe, for me anyway, have always been in the valley. It hadn't been on the mountaintop. We try to get up there at that mountaintop, but when you do, there's no vegetation up there. There's really nothing on a high mountaintop. The fertile land is in the valley, down there at the bottom. So one of the things that I've come to realize that we're all going to have breakdowns, but with every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. That's the good news. With every breakdown, there is a breakthrough. So when I heard that, it really was good information for me, because when I would have like a breakdown, and this would be mainly years ago, when my mother would be, drunk, and maybe my husband would be drunk, and I had a house full of kids, and woe is me and all, and, nothing was going right, and I'd have a breakdown. But every time there would be a breakthrough. So that's just some little information about with every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. So I want to go over some things about breaking free from being stuck in your life. One of the things, it's a choice. You can choose one way or the other. If you want to stay in the ditch and you want to stay in a bad place, go for it. Get all the good out of it that you can. Suck it dry. Feel sorry for yourself. Do whatever you need to do, and feel as bad as you want to, because you have a choice. When you're ready to get out of that bad place, you will get out of it. And particularly if you have had, and everyone I'm looking at on the screen, I know you have had some good times in recovery. So you know what it feels like to feel good. So when you're in that ditch and you're feeling bad, just have that memory that, I can get back there, or I can even go farther. So one of the things, before I think you kind of start any kind of change, is to invite God into it. Invite God into it. God knows everything about us, but if you can just say, God, I am in a stuck place. I don't know what to do. I don't know which way to go, and invite God into it, and then take some action. Now, we can't just sit around on the couch and, we could if we wanted to, and twiddle our thumbs and put it all in God's hands and expect Him to, give us the breakthrough just because we're asking. He's that powerful, but the God that I believe in is, works like this. It's in a partnership. I do the footwork, he blesses the efforts, you know. And so I think with anything, it takes some action, and, you know, breaking free from being stuck in your life is going to take some action. And I wrote it at the very top. You know, used to, we called our intensives breaking free from codependency. And we used to do a 3-day weekend, and but the intensives are really a time of breaking free for people. That's what they do. They break free from whatever bind that they're in, you know, and doing that kind of work can really help people get to the next level of recovery or whatever. So I want to throw that little commercial in, because that's the first thing I wrote up here, is doing an intensive of some sort to, you know, break free of where you're stuck. So the first thing that you do is, you know, make a decision, you know, a choice, whether you want to stay where you are or do you want to move forward, and then invite God into the process. And another thing, the first thing, or not the first thing, but one of the things is face your fears. Face your fears. A lot of people stay where they are for fear of the unknown. And so it's about, we settle a lot of times, we settle for where we are. We settle in our jobs and our coupleship situation, whatever, you know, we settle. And because it takes too much action on our part to make any changes. So I'm not telling you to go out and change everything in your life, but if you're kind of stuck, it could be that you have that fear, and it's about facing your fears. What is holding you back from becoming what God has intended you to be from the very beginning? And then something simple like break your routine. I mean, I have a routine. I may imagine all of you have a routine. And people could, in a lot of ways, not every way, but, you know, I'm pretty predictable. People could probably set their clocks by my routine or their count. You know, I do pretty basically same things. But every once in a while, I like to break that routine. And that can be something as simple as, heaven forbid that I would do this. You know, usually what I do, I get up, wake up, and I do a short prayer meditation and read a meditation book before I ever really open my eyes very good. And then I'm a compulsive overeater. And when I wake up, I'm hungry. So the first thing I do is I eat breakfast. So if I want to break something, you know, I mean, kind of break the routine, I'll wait a while to eat breakfast. I mean, that's just one small thing. Maybe go take a walk instead of, and then eat breakfast later. But it's just kind of breaking up that routine a little bit and not be so predictable, just maybe one small thing. And then if you don't have a routine, the opposite of that, get your routine. If you want to break free from being stuck in your life, if you're scattered in your life and you can't get anything done because you overthink everything and you're too busy, you know, too busy thinking about it instead of taking action, you know, so one of the things you might need to do is to get a routine. That would be different for you, to get a routine. And then overcome the perception of impossibility. You know, overcome that perception that, oh, this is such an impossible thing. I could never do this. It's impossible. You know, one of my Tennie-isms is trust the process. When I'm working with a client and we suggest they do something, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And I just say, just hold it as a possibility. Just hold it right here in your hand as a possibility. And if you're willing to even visualize that and see what that possibility might be, that gets you out of that impossible thinking. You know, because we can do a number on ourselves with that. All of it's just impossible for me. I'll tell you, God, I have kids, I have grandkids, I have great grandkids, and I want the very best for them in every area. And that's how God sees us. He wants the best for us. We're his kids. And so when we put ourselves down and we say, oh, this is so impossible, we're shortchanging ourselves and what God can do with us. So, anyway, so overcome that perception of impossibility. And then be honest with yourselves. When you're really honest with yourself and you go inside, a lot of times when we get frantic about trying to make a decision or don't know what we need to do, one of my favorite, sounds like I'm doing a Bible class this morning, but anyway, one of my favorite verses, or my favorite verse, is be still and know that he is God. And then you break it down, be still and know. And then break it down further, be still, and then be. So just give yourself some permission to just be quiet. Just, just sit with yourselves for a while, just be still. And then when you do that, what's going to amaze you, that you're, whether we like it or not, so many times our answers are right inside ourselves. They are right inside ourselves, and all these other things, the fear and all that, keeps us from really going inside and acknowledging that we do have some answers. And then, in a 12-step program, it's recommended that we don't just charge off on our own esteem and figure, and do those things. It's about when you feel like that you really know what the answer is for yourself, go check it out with someone in the program. I've always had like 3 people that I see Miss Ashley, look at her. I've known her since she was a baby. She came here when she was a little baby. She graduated from Jim Ned High School, didn't she? Good to see you. Now she has children of her own. So getting back to, if we can be still and know the answers are inside of us, but go check it out with someone else. Like I said, I usually have, throughout my recovery life, I've had 3 people that I would check things out with. By the way, all 3 of those people have passed away, and so I have had new people to talk with. But I would go, and there's one I'd go check something out with, and I don't care what I wanted to do. She would just smile and say, well, I just think that's wonderful. I was mad at Ariel and wanted to go shoot him. Well, that's probably what you need to do. She'd agree with anything I said. And then I'd have another one that would just take me to the big book, now this, read this, and give me, action like that. And then I would have another one that would be, and she cussed like a sailor, and she would just cuss, and she said, Blake, this is what you need to do. Now go do it, So I would take all 3 of those opinions and come back. In reality, I pretty well knew what I needed to do. I just didn't want to do it many times. I didn't want to take the action and didn't trust myself. And so that being honest with yourself, that that you really do know more than you think you do. And so then another thing is stop blaming others. Stop blaming other people because because you can't take charge of your own life. Early in my recovery, I don't care what went wrong. I don't care what it was. Not even before recovery. I mean, even before recovery, whatever happened in my life. Well, after all, my mother's an alcoholic. My mother was this, my dad was that. Yeah, and all those things were true. I had a horrendous childhood. And, but we have to go back and do the work around our childhood. That's what that breaking free or that 4-day intensive is. If you haven't looked at your childhood and haven't broke free from the chains of that childhood, You know, what we have people do is go back and look at the childhood and get your history straight. It's not about blaming anybody or blaming mom and dad, but it's about getting the history straight about what happened to you as a child. And look at that and see if there was any kind of abuse. And, you know, we see abuse different today than we did years ago. Used to, it was just severe sexual abuse, was pretty much in severe uh, physical abuse really was what people really looked at. But now we look at any form of sexual abuse, overt or covert, I can't even talk, and then physical abuse. And then emotional abuse, intellectual abuse, and spiritual abuse. So you go back and you look and see what happened to the kid, and you do your work around that. You do your anger work, rage work, and you give that back to whoever gave it to you, you know, the shame or pain that you're carrying. Then you bring it up to today into adult life, and you look back and you say, so what? That shouldn't have happened to a dog, let alone a kid. Now what? You know, when we get into the now what, you know, I am responsible today as an adult for the good things in my life and the not so good things. So I need to quit blaming anyone else and pointing my finger at someone else. You know, that old saying, when we have one finger pointing at someone else, we've got three pointing back at ourselves. You know, probably all heard that. And so then another thing is explore the difference between feelings and facts. Something can happen and, you know, we can get stuck in the feelings. You know, I feel bad. I feel so sad. And we want people to own those feelings. We teach feelings here and do not ignore those feelings. But we can get stuck in the feelings and we can make our feelings facts. They're not always facts. You know, the fact is, like I just said, we're adults today. And guess what? I wouldn't go back and be a kid again if I had, you know, if I could, because I love being an adult and being able to, you know, make my own decisions, good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's, you know, stop blaming and start taking charge of your own life. So it's kind of bad when you can't read your own notes here, you know. I've tried. And then another thing is stop comparing yourself to other people, particularly family members or anyone really, you know, of what they've achieved or what they have and what you don't have. And, you know, when you start comparing yourself to someone else, what you compare is the very worst quality in yourself, and you judge by someone's best qualities. And maybe you're judging yourself against someone that is a high achiever. Maybe they're a high achiever in every area of your life, of their life. And here you judge yourself, maybe one thing in your life that you don't feel good about. Well, you judge yourself against someone that appears to have it all together. So, you know, quit comparing. We're all individuals. So that's another thing. Stop comparing yourself, you know, your weakest points to someone else's strongest points. And this is where affirmations come in. And we talk about affirmations a lot. And we give clients, you know, when they come in, we give them, you know, actually, we still do this. You know, everybody does an affirmation, 5 affirmations at every meal. And then we recommend that you write 50 short affirmations and look in the dark part of your eye in a mirror 5 times a day and say those affirmations to yourself for 2 weeks. If you do that, that brain is going to pick that up. I was reading an article this morning in People magazine after I did my meditation. I was reading an article and it was really good, and I'm going to check into it. It was about this woman that had severe depression and anxiety. And this new, it's not new, it's been out since the 90s. It's a brain thing. Anyway, I don't know enough about it to explain it, but they went on to say how powerful the brain is and how the brain can be recharged and can, get back on track. That's what affirmations will do. That that brain will pick those affirmations up. And it can begin to change the way you feel about yourself. So feelings are not facts. You need to gather your facts and see really what's true about the situation. But remember, all your feelings about it may not be real. Get your facts straight. So it sounds like I'm preaching now. Just stop making excuses for yourselves. Stop making excuses. Don't let excuses keep you stuck. And I hear this all the time. I hear this all the time working with people. Well, I couldn't stay on my food plan because I had company come in. I couldn't stay on my food plan because my kids were sick. I couldn't stay on my food plan because we went on vacation. I couldn't stay on my food plan because of Christmas, blah, 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 blah. Those are excuses, folks. That is not a reality. What has happened, and I'll hear people say, well, we don't just fall into relapse. And next week, I'm going to be talking about triggers. But we don't just go along and fall into relapse. The thought to relapse comes way before we pick up any substance. It comes way before. So when we think about it, we've got time to make a different choice, a different decision, of what we're going to do. So when people, and I hear it all the time, excuses, excuses, excuses. And what I believe, and I may be the only one that believes this, but what I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, they have never accepted that they have a disease. Now, the first step says we admit it. We can admit till hell freezes over that we're alcoholic or have an eating disorder or a sex addiction or whatever. We can admit it and then keep acting out. I couldn't help that. I went to a family reunion and they had whatever, my favorite whatever. I couldn't help it. So when I hear that, and I'm not judging anybody, this is the honest truth. Or if people say, well, my dad died, and that, death is horrible. And I just couldn't go through that grief without drinking. And I couldn't go through that grief without calling my drug dealer. What I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, when people do that, they have not accepted that they have a disease. Once people accept it, they're going to treat it like they treat, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you do those routine things that we're talking about. Recovery has got to be a routine. It is a habit that you do every day, every hour, every minute, regardless of who comes to see you, regardless of if, the sun comes up or the sun goes down or the pandemic or what. I hear all the time, well, I couldn't stay on my food plan because of the pandemic. Well, hell, yes, you can. You sure can. It doesn't make any difference. The pandemic, you could even do it better because you're home and you can prepare your own meals, unless you're some kind of invalid and people bring you food, you order that food yourself. You go buy groceries yourself. You go buy anyway, I'm gone to preaching. But when people accept that they have a disease, they're going to treat it. And when they relapse, as simple as it is, they forgot they have a disease. The minute you decide to pick up, you decided maybe I don't even have it, or maybe I don't have it that bad. Maybe I am just too strict on myself. maybe one drink wouldn't hurt. And that type of thinking is going to get you, into stuck in your life, and it'll put you back into your addiction. And so, stop making excuses for yourself. It's about grow yourself up. So, and then, one of the things, be grateful. Gratitude, and we talk about gratitude nearly every Wednesday of some kind. Be grateful for what you have. When you think you're stuck somewhere, look around at what you do have, not what you don't have. Look around and get grateful for just the small things, maybe a telephone that works that you could pick up and call someone, maybe the electricity is burning. We went 4 days without it. Electricity, during the blizzard, and 4 days without water. I will never turn on a light ever again in my life without thinking about those days. So it's about getting grateful. And then when you get grateful for what you have, this is the law of prosperity. When you get grateful for what you have, what it does, it creates space for good stuff, better stuff to come in. But as long as we hold on so tight and we, get to feeling bad about ourselves, and we, woe is me, nothing's ever going to work. As long as we're doing that, it closes off all of the good stuff to come in. So when we're grateful, it creates space. Lots of good space for the good stuff to come in because you're ready and willing to receive it. And then we started with prayer. We're going to end with prayer. Pray and take action. Pray and take action, and the results will follow. And this is a quote that I found that I really like. And think about this. It's from E.M. Foster. I don't know who he is, but or maybe it's her, E.M. Foster. I think this is very strong words. We must be willing to let go of the life we have planned so as to know the life that is waiting for us. Think about that. We must be willing to let go of the life we have planned. A lot of us have big plans. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do something else, and maybe those plans fall through. This past year, a lot of people's plans fell through. But I think what this last year is going to do, this pandemic, I think it's going to create some openings for people to get creative, to find other new avenues, things that they've wanted to do before and never had the courage to do because they were afraid to lose if they turn loose of that job or that business or that something. So anyway, we must be willing to let go of the life that we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. So in your imagination, everything starts in our brains and our imagination. In your imagination, I would encourage you this week to really think about what you want your life to look like, down to every small part of it. And there may be some things you'll want to eliminate. A lot of times there's things that in our lives that are taking up space that really don't serve us. But we have had them there for so long, we don't know how to not do those certain things. So I hope you'll spend this next week really getting up into your imagination and imagine what you would like for your life to look like that is waiting for you. God knows the plan. All we have to do is be still and know and listen. So that's what I have. Some of it's preaching and some of it's sharing. But what do y'all have about, are any of you stuck in your life? Have you been able to break free of some things? Let's share about breaking free in your being stuck in your life, breaking free from being stuck in your life. Any takers? Hello.
I'd like to share, Tennie, if I may.
Yes, all right. This is Chris. All right.
Something that I've put together in my head and discussed with my wife over the last week is I have a lot of this. I really identify with this this quote, we must be willing to let go of the life we have planned so as to have the life we have waiting for us. And I've encapsulated that into 3 things that I'm offering to God in my affirmations each day. And that's the pain of my past and my fear of the future. And I'm offering him the presence, my presence in the present. And focusing on those things in that way helps me, with the alliterative words, helps me to really think about my past, present, and future, that I have tried to shape them in the way that I wanted. Based on my pain in the past, I thought if I shaped my life this certain way that I could avoid more pain, my children would avoid more pain, that we wouldn't have to be afraid of things. And what I find is that life that's not life's terms. That's not the way life works. So by giving God those 3 things on a daily basis, I'm trying to reshape and live the life that's waiting for me and just enjoy it as it is.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Chris, because you're one of those that you've created so much good stuff in your life. And so what's going to happen in this new journey, all of that's going to surface. That good stuff that you have diligently put into your life, you and your wife, that's going to surface. And you're learning a different way to be with yourself, your wife, your children. And my hat's off to you. We don't get a lot of men coming into treatment saying, I want to change my life. So thanks for sharing, Chris. I'm proud of you. Jackie. Okay.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
I can.
Well, it's a great topic, Tennie. And one thing that's really interesting to me is breaking free from being stuck in your life. I had an occasion about 6 weeks ago where I had relapsed on my raging from my shades days of my first relapse on raging. Really? And I was working with an insurance company on the phone, and they were telling me I had to try some medication, which my doctor said wasn't in my best interest. I was getting really frustrated, and I kind of got a little hysterical, and I started kind of yelling at them, raising my voice, and I started crying. And I remember you saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And I did what you told me to do, and I contacted a therapist that I could drive to, only 3 hours away in Nashville. And I spent my Easter weekend going to Nashville for a quick intensive one-on-one with the therapist to work through it. And sure enough, it was stemming back from time when I was at Shades and my insurance company didn't cover any of it. And I was really upset and just frustrated, and all of those old feelings surfaced because it wasn't about the one medication they didn't want to give me. It was about all that past history I had, and I had to work through that. And today I feel a lot more at peace from doing that work. But one of the things you said is facing your fear and being willing to make the changes. And that's really what this week has been about for me. I just got back yesterday, and it was not how I wanted to spend my Easter weekend, but that was his available date, and I made it happen. And I'm really grateful for you for reminding me to stick with it and keep doing the work, because without that, I wouldn't have found some of the answers I needed to understand and process that pain that I was hidden away under the surface. It's like a layer of the onion. It just keeps peeling away. And, it was time to address it. So for that, I want to thank you. Come clean about my relapse, and I'm back on track.
Well, thanks, Jackie. And you're doing exactly what we recommend, is when the pain comes up, the anger comes up, go do a piece of work, either here or somewhere. Go do it. I've mentioned many times, I went to treatment for trauma and for my eating disorder, to, separate full treatments. And then I've done 3 days, 4 days, 6 days, 8 days. Anything, when that pain comes up so bad that it just chokes you, or the rage, it's time to go do something. And then otherwise, and I am not putting down going to therapy once a week. But an intensive like you went to is about equal to sitting in a therapist office for a year, because you get 1 hour a week. And so that intensive just helps you break free from the stuff. So good job. Exactly what we've shared, encourage people to do. Good to see you, Jackie. Thanks.
Kara?
Okay, Kara.
Hey, this is Carol. Thank you for the talk today, Tennie. I really resonated when you said being in a ditch was not bad. And for me, when I get into the ditch of something, like last week, it was codependency, I get swallowed up, and then I freeze and I panic, and then it turns into terror, which is fear. And but what I realized is I had to be there. I had to be in that ditch so that I could come out of it. And what God helped me do, besides calling people and writing and, doing what I was taught at Shades, was just, I got up one day, I meditated, and it was like, okay, if you were entering Shades today, what would they do? So I started doing that. I totally changed the routine. I totally changed that I was trapped in this pain of grief, and changing with the family, letting the family go. And it helped me. And I was able to finally find a therapist that I can also get some help. And I'm looking forward to that work. And the thing also too, when you said change the routine, that's exactly what I had to do. I had to get out of myself and change. And yes, I did reach out and call people, but nothing was working. And what it was is that I just didn't want to face what was coming up inside of me. Like you said, sometimes we always know the secret, or we know what it's all about. And I'm just really grateful for that process. And it's not a mistake that you talked about this today. So I know I'm right where I need to be. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kara. Good to hear from you.
Rebecca?
Rebecca?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, what a perfect topic for what's going on. I mean, I messaged Tennie and a few other people that I'm friends with on Facebook about our Easter weekend not being so festive. We had a bit of a break-in here, and they took quite a lot of valuable things, not of ours, but of our tenants. However, it's still very evocative, and remembering that I always go back to a break-in that we had many, many years ago, in the same year that my fibromyalgia started. And considering that break-in was partly the cause of my fibro staying. So working through those emotions and trying to just let go after letting be for a few days, just trying to hold myself together, to hold the family together, really.
Well, thank you for sharing, Rebecca. And it's such a violation to be, to be, for your house to be broken in. It was a tenant, but still your property was broken into. It's that it's a real, and you kind of go through a period of grief, like a shock and all. But I'm glad to hear that you're coming out of it. I would encourage you to understand you really don't have, it's not your job to keep your family together. It's, to hold them up. Just take care of Rebecca and let them be, and they'll work through it in their own timing. So, but good to see you this morning.
Yeah, lovely to be here.
All right. I think I saw Cora. Okay, Cora, and then, okay, Cora.
Hi, Tennie.
Good
I
morning.
want to tell you that I took 2 pages of notes. That's how fabulous this lecture was today. And 2 things that jumped out at me. One is, sometimes when I do feel like I'm in that ditch, I feel very lonely. And to hear that being in that ditch is common, and that you learn from it. And I believe that, because when we're on our downs, we learn something that when we're in our ups makes us, so much easier. And I'm learning that there are ebbs and flows. And what I took away from this, and I wrote it down because I really could identify with everything. So I was writing like crazy, but you know what I feel right now? Hopeful.
Good.
I feel hopeful.
Good.
Because sometimes that black hole, which I think is akin to a ditch, and I feel that, see that black hole, and I don't think I'm ever going to get out of it, but I know I will, because I will do everything that I have to do, and that's asked of me and recommended to me to get out of it, because the alternative way to live is just not acceptable.
Yeah. Thanks, Cora. I thoroughly have enjoyed working with you, because you follow directions. Not only from, for me, I would get to work with you on a personal, doing some personal counseling, but also your sponsor. And that's what it takes. If we knew all the answers, we would have already done it, so sometimes it's just, if we can just hear someone else's input, it helps. So glad you got a vacation. You look all rested.
I feel better. Yes. It's a reminder I need to do that more often.
Yes. You've been threatening it all year. All righty. Who's up next?
Diane and Val.
Diane and then Val.
Hey, Tennie, I really enjoyed what you had to say. And because when I get in those ruts, or we get in those lows, you've taught me to talk myself out of them. That trust the process. I say that repeatedly to myself when I get into those lows, and food starts talking to me, or the codependency starts wanting to activate itself again, and all right, it does activate itself again. I find myself, somebody will remind me, that's a codependency way to act. And okay, so I have to back off again. But trusting the process is really, you cannot imagine how many times I've said that to my sponsees these days. Yeah. Because it's the truth. If I don't trust that process and don't believe in that process, I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
But one of the readings I had today, I love to read Emmett Fox.
Oh, I do too.
He said, if you really believe that God is working through you, the quality of work will be high, and you will receive so much inspiration from him that every barrier in your path will fall away. And since I've come back from Shades, I've been finding that true more and more. The more I lean into that power, that God that protects me and loves me, the more things just seem to fall away, and things seem to come about that I never thought possible. And it's a good sponsorship, having good sponsors that work with me, that helps a lot. But it's just, we need each other. That's what pulls me out of the bad places. It's being able finally, after all the years of program and everything else, to reach out and ask for help, because that was a hard one for me.
Yeah. I
didn't trust anybody, and I didn't even trust myself. And slowly but surely that trust is coming back. And those are some of the affirmations I use. I say over and over, I trust myself, I trust God, I trust others, because those are things that really kept me in the disease for so long. With that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. And I've loved watching your progress, because you've been in the program a long time, and you had some really good recovery from through Al-Anon and through OA, but you couldn't quite ever get that you have a disease. And I saw it. You got that you have a disease called compulsive overeating while you were in treatment. And I'm seeing you treat it every day like you've treated, like you've done your Al-Anon program. And so they're coming together like that. And so keep up the good work. Look forward to seeing you next weekend. Yes. Yeah, the 16th. All righty. Good to see you, Diane.
Hey, how's it going, Tennie?
Okay.
Sarah here. So this is a really good topic. I actually just wrote my story. I was nominated by Coda to write my story for one of their new books.
Good.
So hopefully it'll get published. I just sent it to you on Facebook, actually, so you have it if you wanted to read it. And I'd be willing to send it to anybody else on here if they got in contact with me somehow. In case it doesn't get published, you have a chance to read it. I called it Breaking the Bond of Codependence. And so my addict and my best thinking once upon a time really was, if I could just get raped and murdered, that would just be awesome. That is absolutely my bottom. I was pretty bad into snuff porn. For those who don't know, that's on the dark web. That's pornography where women are murdered, usually by choking out in the end, real murder. And that's, that's the level that I'd gotten down to. That was my biggest fantasy, was, because I really just wanted to die. I'm a sex slave survivor, so the abuse that I'd been through was too rough, that I didn't want to feel it anymore. And, if I could just be raped and killed, that would be, at least I'd go out doing what I got high on. So that was definitely where I was at. And then I started taking steps to make that happen. I started scheduling that, planning that out, figuring out how I could do that. And I found myself at Shades of Hope 4 days later. 4 days after I started taking those steps, I went to Shades, because I realized I'm literally going to die, like soon, like physical death, like dead. And I started telling the truth. I started talking about the things that I'd been through for the first time in my entire life. I was willing to be willing. I was honest, open-minded, and willing. That's the how of how you get clean. And I was able to do all those things. It wasn't immediate, but I eventually, within about a year, I was pretty good. And within about 2 years, I was pretty perfect. And today I feel about as perfect as one can feel. I have bad days, but I know exactly what to do with them. I just don't struggle very much with PTSD, or I definitely don't struggle with depression at all. I haven't had depression in a couple of years. But yeah, it is absolutely a choice. And I remember people telling me that, and I was pissed. Oh, I won't curse, but I was really pissed that someone told me that I had the choice to be happy. Because, a lot of people's stories are probably somewhere in the gray area. I'm very blessed that my story is in the black area. No one questions whether I was abused or not. Never once has anybody looked at me and said, "Oh no, your story isn't bad." No one's ever told me that. But because of that, I played the victim mentality for a long time. And I absolutely was a victim. But once I realized that it was my choice to be happy, no one's abusing me today but me. That was a hard pill to swallow. But once I got it down, I was able to do the things that I needed to do to get pretty clean. And I live an extraordinarily beautiful life today. So being happy is absolutely a choice. I don't really care what your story is, because now you know some of mine. So if I can do it, you can do it. And that's kind of the experience, strength, and hope I have for today on this topic.
Thanks, Sarah. And I look forward to looking at your story on Facebook. Yeah.
Tennie, we have a question.
Okay.
You said with every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. What does a breakthrough look like?
Well, it can be different things. When you get down in the ditch or you have a breakdown, what will happen if you will, do those things, don't blame somebody. I mean, if you'll stay with the pain of the breakdown and take some action, that you're going to have a breakthrough that will look, you'll be at a different place than you were before the breakdown, because you're going to have learned. And it can look like, you'll feel lighter, as far as spiritually and emotionally. And two, it could be a whole, something like a job could be coming your way, or, different things, good stuff. That I think the good stuff, we have to be ready for the good stuff. And when we're ready for the good stuff, they come our way. But as long as we're down and out and poor as me, I think the negativity keeps the positive it may float our way, but we won't embrace it until we're ready. And so that's, I mean, and two, when I say that a breakthrough, like I used to ask my sponsor, I would say, I know I'm getting better, but am I really getting better? Or is it just because my kids are getting older? You know, I wouldn't accept that I was getting better. You know, I thought, well, my kids were getting older and they, you know, and so I had to have someone to validate the work that I was doing. And because a lot of times I couldn't see it myself. And then all of a sudden I would feel that breakthrough. And I think this is what recovery feels like. And I can remember, and it might sound silly, but once I figured out through good sponsorship how to use the 12 steps to work with any problem, I mean, I was almost excited to have a problem so I could use the process, you know. Now that's, you know, but it's when that was my biggest breakthrough ever in my life, is when I found a solution through the 12 steps. So the breakthrough can look different for any, you know, for different ones. It can be a huge breakthrough, or it can be something, you know, material, you know, or financial, all of that. God wants to prosper us in all areas of our lives. We're the ones that it's like we nail one foot down on the ground and then we take the other foot and we go around in circles and go around in circles and go around in circles until we stop that and really let God in to work with, you know, work inside of us and to accept who we are as being, well, I'm preaching, but anyway, to know that we are perfectly imperfect children of God and He wants the best for us. So I just believe that. And then, you know, it's not a pie in the sky that's not good for compulsive overeating, but it's not, you know, this fairy tale fantasy thing. That's one thing that how people get stuck in a rut, in a ditch, is when they get into fantasy, making up how wonderful everything's going to be. And I don't care what happens, your fantasy never comes alive. So that's the extreme. But when you really sincerely have a breakthrough down and you say, God, I can't do this anymore. When you surrender it, God takes over and you'll be amazed.
Kim said the breakthrough is awareness of our behaviors and options of here what to do.
Okay, Kim, I thought she was out there working with the yard man, but she sent me a text. I love my Kim. She said the breakthrough is awareness of our behaviors and options of here or what to do. Isn't that good? The breakthrough is awareness of our behaviors and options of here of what to do. Thanks, Kim. All righty. Did I see Val have her hand up?
Earlier.
Did Val have her? Okay. Anyone else? There's Val.
Good morning. Good morning.
Did you have something? I thought I saw your hand up.
Oh, yes. When you posted this last week, I thought, oh, thank God, like, because I've been in a stuck place for too long. However, I had a breakthrough before I got here this week. So that's great. It was a very painful and very tearful and, you know, lots of sorts of things. And, you know, it's that I never know what's going to happen, and it was ugly, but I'm so grateful because it's kind of like all of the stuckness just like, you know, blows off. Right. And it's not, then I see the truth. And for me, it really, I got down to it being very codependent, like getting just, you know, wrapped right back into old habits and not being able to even see it. But the things, when you used to talk about preaching, I and this is what I say, I'm on mute and I'm like, you preach, girl. I say it every time you say that because it's, you know, even if I've heard it before, it's like, I need to hear this. And for me, the two things that really stood out was the comparison. And so thank you for mentioning, because that is what I do, is compare other people's, greatness, their great stories. And then I choose the worst part of me to say, oh, that, which isn't true. I can see that now. And I always say, one thing that I say to my sponsees is, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's so true. Then the other part too is being able to let go of what I thought my life would be like. And, it's kind of like a two-sided thing, because my life was pretty good. It looked good, had all the, the trips and the, all that kind of material stuff, but inside was just absolutely wrecked. And now inside, even though I'm going through a dark place, so much of it, I just am not attached to it anymore. And so I don't have that, of course I was attached to the situation, and that peace, and that, like, I don't need to get involved with that. I don't need to be bothered by that. And it frees up so much. And that, if I could compare my life today, I have choice today. I have free will, like I can do whatever I really want. So thank you for that. And something that came to my mind, I'd love to hear or read, is it Sarah's story? But something that came to my mind when a couple of ladies were talking about doing therapy, is there a way that you could do a 1 day online, put together something like that? That's just a little bug in your ear, because I
could. We've even thought about, and I could, but I've also thought about doing a Zoom at night for people who work during the day. If any of y'all would have any interest in that, maybe twice a month. I couldn't do it all the time, but anyway, think about that and let us know what your thoughts are in any particular day or any time. But I want to give a shout out to my dear friend T out there in Seattle. She's I can just see her out walking by the water. She always listens on her AirPods, but can't wait to come see you in Seattle when all of this, when we all get better with the virus, with the vaccines. So next week, I'm going to read you a quote, what we're going to be talking about. And this comes from a request from Cam. So I'll read you this quote that she sent me. Avoiding your triggers isn't healing. Healing happens when you're triggered and you're able to move through the pain, the pattern, and the story and walk your way to different ending. That is exactly what I was talking about a while ago. Exactly. When people say what they do, they give power to the triggers. They give power to the triggers when they can't stay on a food plan, or they, can't stay clean and sober. And so we'll talk next week about healing happens when you're triggered and you're able to move through the pain, the pattern, and the story and walk your way to a different ending. Our stories sometimes get us in trouble, and we need to be willing to give up our stories of, bless my heart, I just can't do this. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I hear people all the time, and I know how hard it is to treat an eating disorder. I know, but I'll tell you, if you will do it long enough, I will make you an absolute promise. If you will treat your eating disorder or any addiction long enough and give God the time and put it in God's hands every single solitary day, you will wake up one morning and that mental obsession will have been removed. And the substance, whether it's food, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever the addiction is, will take a proper place in your life. And I mean, we'll have, the big book talks about a neutrality. We'll be neutral with, and the food, I mean, I'm closer to being a normal eater. I don't know what that is, but than I have ever been in my life. It's just, it's different than anything I imagined. It is nothing about a diet ever. I mean, it's not, it is. And so I get excited about it, but how, and if it happened for me, it can happen for anyone. But what I had to be willing to do, I mean, I got out of treatment, and for the first 18 years, probably 20 years, I did not vary from that food plan 1 iota. And it was a very strict, rigid food plan, not so much like we have. I mean, there was not a lot of variations. It was, we were taught to look at food like cardboard. It didn't even have to be good, but I stuck by that religiously long enough till God removed that mental obsession. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to think that it couldn't come back, but for today, just for today, it's not there. And that is a God deal for sure. Y'all have a very good week, and think about if you want to.
That was not from me. It came across my news feed from an individual on this talk, Miss Sarah, and I thought it would be very appropriate for you to speak to. So I just want to clarify, I can't take credit for that. I just passed it along. But everybody have a great week, and God bless.
Okay, Sarah, be on here so you can help me with this next week.
I'm interested in reading your story, Sarah.